Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this episode, what I want to talk about is jobs. More specifically, how much does that job pay? I came to this because I was going through LinkedIn a couple of days ago, and it's weird how LinkedIn has kind of become like Facebook light, but that's another that's another story for another day. But there was a article that was posted on LinkedIn, and it dealt with about like when to tell a potential candidate if a job is put it out there that they're looking to hire, when to tell a potential candidate how much the job pays. And that struck me because, like, I would think, just me being silly, I would think that if you're advertising for a job, you have an opening for a job, that you would want the people who are potentially going to send resumes, the people who are potentially going to interview, you would like them to know, what the job entailed and how much it paid, obviously, because you don't want to waste your time. And you don't want to waste their time either. However, in this particular article, they talked about how the candidate, I guess they had submitted a resume, they got past a couple of, initial phone interviews or what have you. And so it's time for a face-to-face interview and possibly the last interview. And they never talk about salary. They're talking about everything else. And the candidate, 20 minutes into the discussion asked, well, hey, how much does the job pay? I mean, I think depending on your profession, that's a legitimate question. I mean, particularly if it's not posted, right? And so the hiring manager said, well, it's kind of ill-mannered to ask about salary or, this early in the process. And the candidate said, well, look, I'm not going to waste my time if you're not going to tell me how much this job pays. And they said that they weren't. And the candidate subsequently walked out. Okay. And so the hiring manager, who happened to be the CEO of the small company, put out a, less than flattering article about it. And they put out this little passive aggressive post on LinkedIn about it. And that's how the story kind of took off from there, what have you. But honestly, they were wrong. Like, you need to disclose or at least give people a ballpark as to what the job that they're applying for entails. The reason being is that at the time of this recording, the U.S., the worker in the United States right now is probably in their best position that they've ever been in, because there is an overly supply of demand for jobs, and there's just simply not enough people to fill them, or at least not enough qualified people who are applying to fill them. And I'm not just talking about going working at McDonald's or, Burger King or, Wendy's or Applebee's. I mean, in all fields, there's a need for people. There's a need for teachers. There's a need for lawyers. There's a need for doctors. There's a need for working professionals. And the working man and working woman understand this, and they understand that for the first time, probably in a long time, they have some leverage. And it's only fitting that you disclose at least what this particular job is going to pay. Because here's the thing. There's no need for me to go through the process of interviewing for a job if it's not going to satisfy my salary requirements or demands. Now, everybody can't be like King Germ from the Frocast. King Germ's, he's got tons of money. So wherever he interviews, it don't matter. But I'll say this. If you take a guy like King Germ, who has a lot of money and doesn't need the salary requirement, he's an exception to the rule. person like myself, I need to know how much this job is going to pay. And again, I'm not here to waste my time, and I don't think it's that hard to put out salary information. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. One, if you don't put out salary information, the candidates that you're interviewing are going to think that you're lowballing them. And that's the last thing that you want to happen, because here's the thing, and I can't speak to any other industries. All I can speak about is centralized corporate America. What is pretty common in corporate America is that they always tell you, don't discuss your salary with anyone. I mean, like, I went years and years without, like knowing what some coworkers were making. And that wasn't fair to me. And I mean, once I found out, we were making about the same, but if they were making a little more, I need to make a little more. Why are they getting paid? I'm just as qualified. And you don't ever want to feel like you're being lowballed. No worker, no matter the field, wants to feel like they're underpaid. It's one thing to be passed over for a promotion. It's another thing to be underpaid, because every time that check hits your direct deposit, you're looking at it. And you're like, man, I got to get more money. Like y'all are holding out on me. Y'all owe me. I'm worth this. I'm worth 300,000 and you paying me 100,000. I'm worth 500,000 and you're paying me 100,000. I'm worth 50,000 and you're paying me 25,000. Whatever the case is. Nobody wants to feel like they're being lowballed. So the thing that I've kind of surmised in my time in travels is that if they don't tell you how much the salary range is, then you can assume that the salary isn't competitive. And if it's not competitive, then it's probably not for you. And that's what most people think. And ultimately, you don't want to, just be running through hoops, basically, for a job, even if you don't have a job. Another thing that's key is that time. You don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste their time. I've always been told, like, if you get an interview, take an interview. There have been times where I've interviewed for positions that I know that I wasn't going to take. Was I wasting their time? No, because I always feel like you can never be too sharp in your interviewing skills. There may be a question or two that I, get or what have you that may make me think, or it may stump me. That's happened in the past, even in interviews with jobs where I knew I wasn't going to take the job. That being said, at least I knew up front what the job was paying. So even in the event if I decided to take the job, I have an idea like, okay, I could work with this. But now, if it doesn't pay what you want it to pay, really, is there any reason to go on the interview? Again, you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste their time either. The one thing that I can say, there's been an equalizer, and the equalizer, as far as learning how much the job actually pays, and that's the internet. For the most part, you can go on different websites and get a salary range as to what, a job entails and how much it pays. I don't know. And sometimes it's based on location, because obviously if you live in New York City, you're going to, let's just say, I don't know, let's say I'm a sanitation worker. If I'm a sanitation worker in New York City, I'm probably going to make more money than I will if I was living in Orangeburg, South Carolina, right? As a sanitation worker. Because Orangeburg is a relatively small place compared to New York City. And a lot of times, if you really, really want to know, do a Google search. Employees will tell you, employees and former employees will anonymously post on Google how much they've made or how much positions you can actually make. which is always a good thing, I think, because even in those posts when they tell you how much they make, they also tend to let you know their satisfaction or dissatisfaction with, you know, their wage scale. So I think that's important as well. Some places, honestly, telling you how much the job actually pays is the law. Um, in Colorado, it's the law. They have to tell you, they have to disclose it. And I think later on this year, this calendar year, at the time of this recording, New York City, they'll have to disclose how much it is, the job that they're posting, at least a salary range. Now, the range is it could be huge. It could be a big gap. If you say, hey, this job pays between 60,000 and 80,000, that's a nice little range. But as a candidate, I think what you have to figure out is, if I fall on the lower end, 60, 65, is that okay? If I fall on the higher end, I'm good, I'm Gucci, right? But what's the likelihood of that? Because that's where your negotiations come in. If you say, hey, I've been doing this job, I've been a sanitation worker for 25 years, I have great reputation, I do this, and that, then yeah, you probably can negotiate to that 80,000 mark, or maybe even longer. Maybe even something bigger than that range, if they really want you. If there's a bidding for your services, I've been there before. Where you have companies kind of bidding for you. That's a great feeling too. I mean, you kind of feel like a free agent. You know what I mean? Like you're happy, and it's like, okay, well, we got this offer over here, we got this offer over there. I had that happen once. That was really, really dope. It was really dope. And the job that I ended up taking it actually worked out pretty cool. So I had no complaints. But companies are going to have to tell you how much the job pays. I would implore each of you to do your research, do your Googles, ask questions. Idealistically, you want to find these things out before you interview. Because again, you don't want to waste your time. You want to make sure that you're in a qualified pool of candidates, and you want to make sure that, one, you can have some leverage, because trust me, if they're offering you 60,000, they can pay you 60,000. Hell, who knows? Maybe they can pay you 100,000. You won't know unless you ask. So gather as much information as you can get when it comes to that. Being armed with that, you have some type of some level of power, if you will, being able to negotiate the contract, but always know what the job is going to pay up front. A lot of times, particularly in corporate America, I've dealt with recruiters. Recruiters they know up front. And sometimes in dealing with recruiters, they might try to scheme a little bit off the top. The job pays 80,000 and they're telling you it pays 75,000. No, let me get everything that I'm getting. The job pays 140, but they're telling you it pays 120. No, you're not going to cheat me, because you can't take that money. That money that money should be coming to me. And I'm not saying that all recruiters do that, but be very careful with recruiters, because you just never know. The recruiter is much like, particularly in corporate America, is like an agent in sports. They work for you. So they don't get it and get paid unless you get hired. Simple as that. But arm yourself with as much information as you can. I've made it kind of a rule now, because of how things have been since COVID and because of the industry that I'm in. I'm not going to apply for a job that I can't see how much it is paying. Because I know my worth. I know what I am on this market. I know what I bring to the table. And that's not being arrogant or cocky. I'm just speaking to someone who's been in this industry for 20 years. So I know what I'm doing, right? And everything that I say and I do, I can back it up. And, I'm pretty good at what I do, modestly speaking. But, so I'm going to get my $10 an hour. I'm going to get my $10. Y'all ain't going to cheap. Y'all ain't going to be cheap and keep me from getting my $10 an hour job. But yeah, I said all that to say this. Get as much information as you can. Do not let anybody lowball you. Know your worth. And go into it knowing that, one, the job is yours, and two, they're going to pay you every dime, not a penny less. That's going to do it for me. Thank you for checking out this bonus edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. The podcast drops each and every Friday, each and every Thursday at midnight. Make sure that you subscribe, because from time to time there will be bonus episodes that will drop on Sundays. Also, remember that there's a YouTube channel. Check it out and subscribe there as well. That's going to do it for me. I'm your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.